Good morning, YouTube. Hey, everyone out there in survival land. How you doing? Oh, they're frisky. Oh, look at that. Look at them go. Now, these things ignite really quick. See how quick I just barely touched that. Hey, YouTube. Freedom for Kaz here. Hey, guys. I'm going to be making a very, very important video today. So, I give each and every one of you permission to mirror this video and get this information out to as many people as we possibly can. I have one question for you before we go any further. How angry are you at BP for the lackluster job they've done about cleaning up the oil? Now, what I mean by that is, I don't mean the oil in the Gulf of Mexico. If you folks don't remember, or maybe you weren't part of my channel at that point in time in mid-2010, there were actually 2 BP oil spills last year. One in the Gulf of Mexico and one here in the state that I live, Michigan. And I'm going to give you a quick Cliff Notes version as to what happened, and then I'm going to continue on with this story about the cover-up of the BP oil spill here in Michigan. Please pay attention. On July 22nd, 2010, near Marshall, Michigan, part of the Olympic pipeline cracked and spilled a reported 800,000 gallons of oil into the Kalamazoo River. But actually it was more like about 1 million gallons of crude that dumped into the river, and then eventually flowed into the Talmdge Creek. Okay? This pipeline was managed by Enbridge. Enbridge and BP partnered up in 2005 for ownership of this said pipeline. BP claimed that they would adhere to the highest standards of safety and that they were taking a quote-unquote comprehensive approach in steps to meet and or exceed state and federal guidelines as far as cleaning up the oil here in Michigan. The problem began in January of 2010 when both Enbridge and BP were notified with problems concerning this said pipeline. So they knew 6 months ahead of time prior to the accident that there was going to be a problem. And of course, what did they do about this warning? Not a damn thing. The pipeline was built in 1969, and essentially, to give you a Cliff Notes version as to how the pipeline runs, it runs from Canada basically underneath the Great Lakes and then back into Canada by Ontario. Okay? So if there were to be a major severage of this pipeline, the fresh water in all of the Great Lakes would be gone in a matter of hours because of the flow that is connected from Lake Michigan to Lake Superior to Lake Huron, through the St. Clair River, through Lake St. Clair, through the Detroit River, through Lake Erie, into Lake Ontario, through the St. Lawrence Seaway, out into the Atlantic Ocean, and across over to Europe. Okay? Understand that this pipeline essentially goes underneath the Great Lakes. So let's get started with the video. Okay? We're going to start here, and the headline is, EPA and Enbridge still covering up lax cleanup efforts. And this article came out in November of 2010. Okay? It says, the Michigan Messenger is reporting that the EPA and Enbridge continue to ignore the whistleblower warnings and the video evidence that much of the oil remains in the Kalamazoo River as of late July spill. Okay? So here it is in July. So we got July, August, September, October, and November. This was 4 months later. And they still haven't really done anything about the cleanup. I'll continue. Enbridge officials acknowledge that the oil spill is not completely gone and that the work on the river will continue until weather prohibits any more cleanup. Then they say it will pick back up in the spring, okay? But John Baldwin says that while he was working on the river, officials directed workers to leave oil contaminations at various locations along the river. He was fired from the cleanup, he says, because he blew the whistle on Enbridge and BP. Okay? So now he is being protected under the whistleblower law. Okay? Because he was an employee of the cleanup crew and he blew the whistle in a sense saying, hey, this isn't right. Okay? The Michigan Messenger reported similar allegations in September when a whistleblower provided the Messenger, which is the newspaper or the news station, they're called the Messenger, with first-hand accounts and photos of oil on islands dotting the 37 miles of the Kalamazoo on all of its banks. Enbridge and the EPA officials denied these allegations at this time. Let's continue. This article comes out December 18th, 2010. Battle Creek, Michigan. Nearly 5 months after the big oil spill in the Kalamazoo River, some living near the affected area accuse Enbridge of not cleaning up the mess as well as it claims. This July 26 spill leaked nearly, as I said, 1 million gallons of crude into the river near Talmdge Creek at the pipeline burst. Anybody with eyes and ears can see very easily that the same things we're seeing, said Autumn Smith, an activist in Battle Creek. It's obvious that there is a cover-up. There is canvases with grass over the oil. Still, oil in the river. So what they're saying is that they're taking these canvases, okay, and they're just spreading them out across the land and across the water, and then they're taking dirt and they're throwing them on top of these canvases, and then they're just covering up the oil so you don't see it. They're not removing the oil, they're just covering it up, okay? It says, Saturday, more than a dozen residents living in different sites along the river gathered at the Battle Creek Urban League for a special forum focused on how the Canadian company is allegedly covering up the oil and not focusing enough on the thorough cleanup in the area in a rush to meet EPA guidelines. This former Enbridge cleanup worker, John Baldwin, has traveled along the river documenting the lack of cleanup and restoration in numerous places. Baldwin was fired after going to the media with his cleanup concerns and is currently pursuing a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. Baldwin has since become somewhat of an activist in the area, okay? There will also be a link to John Baldwin's YouTube channel as well. John Baldwin says, there are areas that they just didn't clean up or really didn't care to clean up good enough. Baldwin told Fox 17 Channel News, way too much of the oil it's sickening. And when I walk out there and the oil just pops up like I can fill my glove up with oil and all the fish and wildlife are dead. I suppose Enbridge could come back and say it was that the contractor is doing it, but the bottom line is it's Enbridge that needs to make sure that this is all cleaned up, says Nancy Morgan, who attended the forum. Morgan lives along the river in Baker Estates in Battle Creek. They're just not doing a good job at all. There's oil all over the river, okay? And remember, This article came out on December 18th, which was just about a month ago. And there's still oil everywhere. But let's continue with the video. This article came out January 5th, 2011. So this is the most recent article that I found. Here's an interesting point. Autumn Smith, 26, is an oil spill victim turned activist. In the wake of the devastating spill, she has been forced to evacuate her home. Okay, I want to point that out. That when this spill took place, they evacuated the homes. My question is, why didn't they do that in the Gulf of Mexico? But anyway, back to this story. Enbridge insisted that she pay for the hotel room now, and that they promised her that they would reimburse her any fees and costs that were incurred by living in the hotel. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that for a second. I'd make them pay up front. Now, tell me if you've heard this one before, it says in the article. An irresponsible oil company causes a large oil spill. The company's first move is to block media access and downplay the size of the spill. The spill turns out to be much larger, but cleanup efforts are lackluster and more focused on PR than the remedy. 5 months later, the local residents are being treated like nuisances, not victims, and the company appears to be recovering up shortcomings in the actual cleanup process. Sadly, this has become a template, not a single occurrence. It fits BP's Deepwater Horizon as perfectly as it does Enbridge's ongoing situation in Michigan. And remember, Enbridge and BP are partnered on this pipeline. Enbridge has had plenty of time to clean up the mess in the area, but residents say the company has only made deceptive progress aiming at fooling the US EPA and in complacency instead of actual fixing their mistakes. Their canvases with grass over the oil. There's still oil on the river, and all the fish are dead, says Smith. Local media covered a forum organized by Smith and attended by more than a dozen residents living along the river sites. Her description of the oil found seeping just beneath the surface is eerily reminiscent of the recent accounts in the Alaska beaches solidified by the Exxon Valdez and now beaches along the Gulf Coast in the Gulf of Mexico. How sick and tired are you of BP getting away with this stuff, and yet they make billions and billions of dollars while people like in the Gulf Coast of Mexico and people like these folks here in my home state of Michigan are stuck with this? I want to encourage everybody to mirror this video. Send this message along. There will be links underneath to John Bullenball's page and to all of these news stories. This has been a huge cover-up by BP and by Enbridge as well. Please, mirror this video. Get the information out. We need to put a stop to this. This has gone on long enough, America.